Hello my lovelies, what is going on today? It's me, your good friend Quicksilver, and today's video is sort of a follow-up to the one that was posted on the 27th of December. Okay, so yesterday we posted a Meet the Altars video. There's a link in the description below if you haven't seen it yet, in which quite a few of us actually were able to front and introduce ourselves rather than us all needing to be introduced by Yang, who I believe was the one fronting at the beginning of that video. So this video is going to be a follow-up to that video. There were a few altars in that video that were mentioned, but not much information was offered about them, relative to Dean, Sam, Yang, etc. Castiel is one of those. We didn't talk much about him because we actually don't know a whole lot about him. Same with Zari, Jace, and a couple of our other altars. These are altars who are either newer to the system or don't front very often, or both. Some of them are confused about their roles in the system and will try to figure out as best as they can, but they might not, and that's okay as well. This video is to talk about one specific altar, an altar that we mentioned by name in that video, but offered no information about. His name is Bucky. Before we start, I want to give a little disclaimer. Most of our videos are not scripted, because we want to be genuine on camera and allow everyone to see our genuine reactions, but because of how unpredictable our switching is and how many things Sam specifically had to share about this topic, this one is. Sam is the one who wrote the script for this video. He just really has a lot to say on the topic of Bucky, and he feels very, very strongly about Bucky, and so we want to honor that and make sure that we cover all of the things that we wanted, that he specifically wanted to be able to share. So, yeah, we really don't have the brain power, the consistent short-term memory to memorize the script, so we will be referring back to it. It's just going to be on our screen. It hopefully won't take away from your enjoyment of the video at all. Bucky is a multi-source, fictive-factive abuser interject. There's a whole lot of confusing DID terminology that I just threw at you. You could know what it means, or you could not. There's a whole range, wide spectrum of knowledge about DID you could fall anywhere on that spectrum, so I'll break it down. An interject is an alter who is based on something else. Within the general category of interject, there are two subcategories, fictive and factive. A fictive is an interject of a character from fiction, whereas a factive draws from real life. A multi-source interject is an alter who is pulled from more than one place. And lastly, an abuser interject is an interject of a person who hurt or abused the system. Abuser interjects, as I understand it, are fairly common in systems, so I haven't done incredible, in-deep, specific research into all the components of DID. We've only been researching deeply for a few months. If any of you are interested, we can link you to other YouTubers who are more knowledgeable than we are, and make it the point of their channels to give objective, factual information, but that's not what this video was about. Someone said in our previous video that we're going to be talking more about our experiences, which isn't strictly true. We are going to try and talk a lot about our experience, because that's all we can really share. We are also going to endeavor to educate deeply and correctly as many people as we can with the most factual and up-to-date information that we can find. So the point is, abuser interjects are common, as we understand it, because of our somewhat limited but constantly expanding understanding of DID and our involvement in the DID community on Tumblr and Discord, and to an extent Twitter. Because DID is by nature an internal disorder, it's very easy to interject someone who has severely hurt you. It's designed to be covert, and DID systems internalize much of their trauma. That's part of why we develop interjects in the first place, which I can go into in another video, but it's really not the purpose of this one. If you're all interested, though, we are perfectly willing to do an entire series about just alters, interjects, different alter roles and things like that. So yeah, if you'd want to watch that, please comment and let us know. Back to Bucky. Bucky is all of the above explained. First of all, he is a fictive of Bucky Barnes from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He takes his name, appearance, and some of his behaviors from this source. He's also, however, an interject of a close relation to the system, and we're not going to identify beyond that, and retains much of his persecutorial behavior from that source. There are a few things to note before we continue. First, and most importantly, we are completely safe. We are not living in a place that is actively harmful to us, and we are also not trying to say that this close relation is abusive. He has some behaviors and methods of communicating that over time have hurt us a lot, and we have internalized those things in the form of Bucky, but he is not a bad person or a bad family member, and he is taking care of us. Please note as well that interjects are not carbon copies of their sources. They can have different names, faces, thought patterns, ideals, or identities. Our system's Bucky is about 85% MCU and 15% this close relation. So now that we've gotten all of that over with, we can start getting into the good stuff. Bucky's role in the system simplifies down to Persecutor. It is much more complicated than that, and we are going to go into that later in this video, but the very basic understanding of it is that he is a Persecutor. This means that he is an alter who actively attempts to hurt himself or the system. In our case, this manifests as him triggering other alters, abusing and lying to them in our inner world and headspace, self-harming, deliberately trying to hurt the people that we're close to in order to degrade our relationships and isolate our system, and other problematic behaviors. Now, there's a lot to unpack in that. First of all, none of the things that I'm about to say excuse his behavior. None of the things that I'm about to say are justifications or mean that it's okay for him to act this way or are intended to imply that we condone this behavior. These are things that we are actively working on with Bucky. We are all flawed people. Every one of us in this system, and every person outside of this system, is a flawed human being. So we will never be perfect. But Bucky, he doesn't do these things out of malice. It doesn't make them okay. But understanding that is our first step to being able to connect with him better and help him and rehabilitate him. We want him to be happy and as fulfilled as he possibly can. So he's supposed to be a system protector. His real job is to make our system safe, but he has no healthy coping skills. So he does whatever he can think of to protect us, to take care of us. Destroying our relationships is his super messed up way of trying to make sure that we're always emotionally safe. We have extensive trust issues and trauma surrounding interpersonal relationships, as we have had many people we became very close to who told us, you know, I'm never going to leave you, I could never think XYZ about you, and then the end of those relationships was them saying, actually, I do think XYZ about you, and forcefully and violently extricating themselves from our lives. Some of those were our fault. We are not going to pretend that we have been blameless in every relationship we've ever been in. We have definitely made many mistakes in our lives, and we have hurt people. And there are people that we have hurt so badly that they did not feel safe keeping us in their lives, and that is incredibly valid. We're very sorry that we hurt them that much. We would go back and fix it if we had the chance, but we're also glad that they were able to set those boundaries for themselves and to recognize that our relationship was unhealthy for them and that they needed something else. So some of the endings of those relationships were our fault and some were all on them. But the fact remains that when someone tells us that we're not toxic, that we're important to them, or that they appreciate us, we always have to wonder. So Bucky believes that by severing our connections, he's keeping us safe. If we can drive everyone away, then no one can hurt us, which is a valid reaction to trauma and one that we can work through. But it's a lonely existence, and the rest of the system did not consent to that. We love so deeply, and we crave human connection, and we have so many deep and loving relationships with our partners, with our close friends, with our family, and we feel so fulfilled in those relationships. We don't want to lose those things. So, as much as we know Bucky is trying to help, it just makes things worse when he comes out and he tries to attack people that we care about, and he does sometimes succeed in degrading those relationships. Since we've discovered him, we've had to give kind of disclaimers to all the people that we're close to, like, hey, there's this altar that you might meet, and you have to be aware that if he says anything to you, he's gonna try and exploit your triggers. He's gonna try and use your insecurities against you, and we need you to know that no one else in the system believes those things. And honestly, Bucky probably doesn't really believe them either. He's just saying whatever he can say to make people angry, to make people feel hurt. There's also the fact that Bucky is deeply traumatized. Obviously, we're all traumatized because DID is bare bones, just an incredibly severe form of PTSD. But the way that Bucky presents his trauma is more external than the rest of us. He hallucinates, he has delusions, he has some pseudo-memories from his MCU source about war, the people he's killed, and his brainwashing, and he carries a lot of anger from that. Those things are very triggering to him and often make him think, make him question his reality, and he sometimes feels as though he's being controlled by someone else. He doesn't know what to do with those feelings, and so he pushes them all outward. Bucky is in a lot of pain all the time, and he doesn't know how to make his pain go away. So he instead tries to hurt everyone around him, to drag them down to his level, because it makes him feel powerful. And he needs power, because otherwise he's useless to us in his eyes. He needs to have power over his situation, otherwise he can't do what he perceives to be his job. And on top of that, Bucky has a really hard job. He is expected to carry all of the trauma that is allotted to him, to manage all of his anger, and he is the alter who absorbs and then is forced to take responsibility for our toxic, cruel, and unfair behavior. And before we go any further, I do need to go on a little tangent. I know we generally try to avoid tangents because they can sort of detract from the message of the video, but this one is important. Abuse and trauma will leave you with incredibly unhealthy and, yes, toxic behaviors and coping skills because you don't know how else to survive. Because those things kept you alive at some point, and you can't get rid of them anymore. That's why we go to therapy, because being abused, being traumatized, being a system, none of these things are excuses for toxic, cruel, and unfair behavior. They explain why you may act that way. But you still have to take responsibility for the fact that you acted that way. And you have to take steps, you have to actively work, and you have to make the effort to go to therapy, to talk to professionals, to heal from your trauma, and to develop better, healthier, less toxic coping skills, especially when it comes to interpersonal relationships. Because some of the relationships that you're going to care about the most are going to be with people who know their worth, and those people are going to say, I'm not gonna take this from you. And so if you can't put in the work to change those behaviors, then you're gonna lose people. DID is not pretty, guys. No form of PTSD is pretty, because at the core of it, it is the fact that something happened to you that was horrific enough to physically change the structure of your brain and the way that it functions. Your brain didn't know what it needed to do, so it rearranged itself because it thought that was the way to make it work properly in the high, extensive stress situations that you were constantly put in. Multiplicity and Me had an excellent video about ACEs and first childhood experiences. But here's the other thing. Trauma responses are not a victim's fault. And triggers are always valid because they are your brain trying to protect you. It recognizes something that for whatever reason is connected to a traumatic event and it says, no, stop, we need to get out of here. And it throws your body into that state of hyperarousal, into that anxiety mode, and rings all your alarm bells until you no longer feel like you're in danger. It's purely your monkey brain taking over. And that's not something that you can control. So if something triggers you, then you are valid. Healing from trauma is not pretty. It means being too forceful and caring too much, pushing too hard, not enforcing your boundaries, trying to figure out where the frick the invisible lines are between self-care and selfishness and all these other things that you have to relearn when you're traumatized, or that you never got to learn in the first place. And everyone reacts to trauma differently because every brain is different, and so they all change themselves in different ways, and all trauma reactions are valid. I know that I already said that, but it does bear repeating. We all try to love each other in this system. We want to work together and help each other to grow and heal and function as best we can in a world that was designed for singlets. It is not easy to love Bucky, but we have to meet him where he's at, even if that's 50 steps behind where the rest of us are. And that's just people. That's just relationships. You always have to compromise. It's so difficult to meet Bucky with love. He hurts us, he makes us angry, and sometimes we fall short. Sometimes one or multiple of the alters in our system hates him. It's part of the process. And that is all we have to say on this topic today. I didn't really get to say all the things I wanted to, but I sort of just feel like I'm rambling now and this video is getting long, so we're gonna end it here. Make sure you leave a like if you want to. I know this is kind of a heavy topic. Comment down below as well. Please ask me your questions, answer mine, anything. Let me know what you thought. Tell me if I should make more videos like this, and if so, what I should do next. It's not the easiest thing for us to talk about, but it feels really good to share, and we'd be willing to share more if there's interest. And of course, if you want to see more content like this, click that subscribe button and tap the bell to stay on top of all the system's uploads. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye, my darlings. This is an update as of December 28th, 2020. We have actually made somewhat of a breakthrough with Bucky today, and I did want to share that with you since we were recording this video today. Anyway, we had to go to a warehouse with our parents today and kind of clear it out, and we just do lots of manual labor, and we got to do some, we got the fun job. We were handed a sledgehammer and told to destroy all the desks, and there were like 5 of them. So Bucky was fronting, and Sam asked if they would be okay kind of sharing sharing the front together, and kind of made a connection with Bucky, and Bucky got to be ragey and kind of channel his destructive tendencies into something that was very productive and very good for our system and for our healing. And Sam made a genuine connection with him. Sam is the alter who holds our anger, so that's kind of why Sam was there as well. But he's also the gatekeeper, so he's kind of just protective, and he wants to make sure that we can have healthy communication. And so he made a real, genuine, decent connection with Bucky, and you know, it's not like a big thing, but it's a nice first step, and it means that hopefully we are on the path to recovery.